there everybody, welcome to Sew Darn Twisted. It's Becca here. Thank you for joining my channel and coming to have a little look at what I've been doing here. So for about 3 or 4 weeks now I keep meaning to make a book to record the details of my swaps and wishes that I'm granting for people, you know, that kind of thing, because I'm forever putting post-it notes, you know, all over my desk. I've got post-it notes hanging off the fronts of my shelves, and, you know, just kind of remember that this address by this date to this person, and we're making that, and, you know. So I thought, why not make myself a journal? It seems like a no-brainer, you know, one of those things that should have been completely obvious, but somehow missed the memo on that one. So what I did was I made a very basic, this is just covered with paper, you know, and some decorative paper panels. I just made that to go on the front, and I've just done a simple eyelet bind on there, and then as you can see in here, so what I've done is I've made these inserts that are now available on my coffee page as free printables, and so in here, you know, I'm not going to actually, because now I have actually written in this since I filmed the original tutorial, so I just don't want to have someone's address on the screen kind of thing. So, you know, but yeah, it's got space for the name of the group. I've done the months, January all the way through, you know, and you can write what the swap is, who your partner is, their address, and what date it's due to be with them by. So it keeps it really nice, really simple, concise. Space for wishes in the back of this one as well. And the beautiful part about this is that once I've done, you know, once I've filled this, all I have to do is snip this out and I can just sew in a new signature, you know. So I can just do another batch of these, sew it into the same cover, and we're golden. So, you know, and it's got a nice little space in there just to stick my pen, which is also kind of cool. And that just now sits like by me, and then as soon as I grant somebody's wish on one of the groups, or you join a swap or whatever, or the swaps that I'm organising as well, it helps me keep track in here. So I'm just going to show you how to make this, really very quick, very simple, basic equipment, with the exception obviously of an eyelet punch, you know, which you may or may not have. If you don't, there is a very simple way that in my other tutorials, so I can show you a way that you can still do this, where you can just cut the signatures out and put a new one in. So shall we get started? All right then, so as usual I do try to keep supplies basic. Now I am going to be using a hole punch and eyelets for the spine on this one, but you don't have to, you can just sew them in. If you have a look at a few of the recent tutorials that I've done with regard to making actual journals, there's one that shows you a very quick and simple way to just sew through without fuss. So you don't have to use the eyelets for the purpose of this particular book. So I've got my cover that I'm going to use from one of the books where the whole spine including the glue had just come out, so it's like, okay. So I've got my cover, I've got some decorative papers to cover it, line it, you know, that kind of thing. I've got some card as well, because I might use some card to use on the inside panels. And I've got just some plain paper to make my signatures out of, because again, this is just meant to be like a really simple little book that you can just put together to keep track of everything. So, you know, you can make it into a full-blown decorated junk journal with, you know, but I'm just going to go with the basics for the purposes of this tutorial. So I'm going to be using some embroidery floss and a tapestry needle, paper trimmer, pencil, you know, that kind of thing, some glue, which we've just got here. So you might need ink. If you're inking your edges, I probably won't be for the purposes of this book, and corner punch, that kind of corner rounder if you want to. But to be honest, today I would probably use this really basic one, which just takes out the very corner, you know, but it doesn't really round it off, it just takes the sharp corner away. So I'll probably use that one. And then I think that's everything we need right there, so that's pretty useful. let's get making. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to line up on this piece of paper, line up the journal there. The first thing that you must make sure of, by the way, is if you're using an old reclaimed book cover, give it a good wipe over, with some soap, and dry it off and everything, because if it's got any kind of grease or anything like that on it, it will stop things from sticking as well as they could. So I always just give mine a little sort of just, a wrung out dish scourer that's had like washing up liquid on it, dish soap, and I just run it across there and it works a treat. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to just pop some glue on the spine, and I'm going to use glue stick today because I'm only using thick paper, and I don't want the mess of having to try to smooch Mod Podge, PVA glue all over it. I can't be bothered today. So we're just gonna make sure that's in, and now that will just hold there for me to get the next bit on the cover there. So we're going to make sure that we get all the way to the edges. It's very important to get to the edges and get really good coverage. Okay, pop that down. If you've got a brayer or anything like that and you want to give it a really good push down with that, just flip it over and go over it with that. I've got the one that came with a tool set for my Cricut, and I use it for everything. It's fabulous. So I'm just going to turn that over, and I'm just going to kind of push down on that. Spin it round, and now I'm going to glue this side. Same thing, obviously. Right then. So now I know that that's all nicely stuck down, and I'm good to start folding in the corners. Ordinarily, if I'm using fabric or card or anything like that, I will cut across the corner to reduce the bulk. But when it's just thick paper like this, you can absolutely just kind of fold this to a point there, kind of snug with your corner, and just do that on all four. So you don't want to pull it like really, really tight to the point that it starts to poke through your paper, but you just want it to be kind of touching. So it's nice and simple. There we go. I'll try and keep this as easy as we possibly can. So just a little bit of glue on each of those just to hold that in place. All right, so another tip for getting the folds made here is if you have a plastic ruler or a long bone folder or something like that, just line it up with the edge, and then you can just kind of push against it, and you'll get a nice sharp line. You can go at it from that direction and just push it over, and then that will give you your nice crease there without it kind of all puckering and buckling up like you often see, when you're just trying to sort of push it with your fingers. So we're just gonna, there we go, and then again just push that over to create our nice crease. Now I'm just gonna grab some more glue, run it along that line, push down, and always push from the edge of the book inwards, because it just helps to keep a nice smooth tension going on there. Flip that out of the way. Same again. Give it a little go over with your brayer tool or your bone folder if you're not using a brayer tool. Okay, there we go. So that is our very basic cover made. So now I'm going to pick out some of the decorative paper that I've got here. So what we're going to do then is we are going to just kind of eyeball and pinch measure, close to the edge kind of thing, and then just kind of, you just stick your finger there, it'll just give you a little guide to fold back on, and then you know that that's your cut point there, where that pinch point is. Saves a lot of silly measuring if you don't need to, doesn't it? And then we'll just get that trimmed off at that height. There we go. And then what I'll do is I will do another one that's kind of 2/3 of the way across the spine and just create another little pinch point there. Doesn't have to be precise with regards to, you know, anything like that. You can make the paper go almost all the way to the edge. You can bring it in further so you've got more of a lip. It depends on what you want, and as far over as you go isn't a problem. If you're using paper, the only thing you might notice is you might end up with a crease. Much like in the original book, you can actually see the crease here. So, you know, same kind of thing, not a problem. So at this point, I'm just going to get my little rounder, and I'm only going to do it on the outside corners because these corners are going to be covered anyway, so there's no point worrying about those. And as I say, I've just taken off that very, very edge, you know, it's just taken the sharp corner away. Nothing drastic. Okay, then we will go back to the glue of doom. So we'll just get a goodly amount. Goodly amounts. And then just pop that down. Obviously, if you are inking your edges, be sure to do that before you place your paper on. There we go. And then I'm just going to use my bone folder against the crease line on that side, just to help it sit in the right place. And again, I'm just going to use my brayer tool just to get that over. Fantastic. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle there in the spine. Sorry, shaking the camera like a good one there. And then one more time, I'm just going to give that a little push. I'm going to do exactly the same for this side. And when you do the other side, you can just measure what piece you have here, or you can just line up the top and just create another little pinch fold at the bottom to do the same thing. Because you really do want the tops to meet, you know, the top and bottom, sorry, you want those to be the same, or it can just look a little bit scruffy, you know. Obviously if you're not worried about it being a little bit scruffy, then it doesn't matter. So I'm going to kind of line up this edge with just before the crease of my spine on that side, so just kind of there. And then I know that that's going to be my other pinch point. It is a much easier way of just creating on the fly, you know, to do that kind of thing, to just go, right, okay, you know, I'm just going to put a pinch in where I want it to start, where I want it to end, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, lovely. So let's clip those out as well and get this one glued in. And I'll just pop that one down. I've actually made these slightly closer to the edge than I had intended to, but it doesn't matter, in all honesty. You know, for something like this, I'm not seeking the same level of perfection, if you like, because this is a tool. This is just for, you know, just for a single purpose, and I'm really not fussed if it's not entirely as perfect as I normally like to get my lines and stuff like that, you know. So, oh, one more time, just bring that up, give it a little push against your bone folder, and then you should be able to close that nicely. There we go. So that's the first part of the cover done. So now for the outside panels that I'm going to put on this one, which are obviously completely optional. So for the outside, I'm going to make sure that I do have a border. So again, I'm just going to pull that over, give it a pinch, and it's like, okay, that's fine. So now I can just fold that down. And then the beautiful part of that is, I now know that if I just trim off that excess, they're both the same width. Work smart, not hard. And then I can just cut that straight down the middle, which is quite fantastic. Oh, this reminds me, one of my friends, Catherine, watched the Happy Mail folder tutorial that I did, that if you haven't seen it, it was put up on my channel last night. Sorry, I think my blade needs replacing again. And she was saying, I was asking how did I score on a cutting board, because like she's only ever seen them with the blade on. This one has a little scoring tool attached to it, so that's the cutting blade there, and that's the scoring tool, so it just uses the same gully here. So that one is by Vase and Creative. So I got this on Amazon, and it wasn't hugely expensive or anything like that, so I do recommend it. It's quite wonderful. But I do seem to get through a heck of a lot of blades, but then I do cut a lot of card on mine that I should probably use my guillotine for instead, but I'm rubbish, so I don't. Give that a little fold, and then you can again take both pieces and just cut them following that same crease line, just to cut down on your effort. There we go. So that's our front and back panels done. And again, I'm just going to clip out those corners. I'm just going to take my glue on just a piece of paper, because I want to make sure I get all the way to the edges. And I hate getting glue all over my cutting mat, so I usually end up with a piece of paper. I'll just use that for a couple of weeks to glue onto when I'm using this stuff. So let's get that one on. So let's just get this one on as well. Again, lots of nice coverage so you don't end up with little bubbles. And then get that one on there as well. Move that out of the way so it doesn't end up laying in my glue. And there we go. Fabulous. And again, I'll just get my brayer tool. And then I'm just going to create a little panel there for the spine using one of the trimmed pieces from the inside. It's just a matter of which one. I think I'm going to use that one. So for this one, you probably are better off actually measuring, because it's quite a narrow and a sort of curved little space. So that's 3 centimeters. So I would do it to kind of, you know, 2 to 2.5 centimeters. And what were the length of my panels there? 16. So I'm going to make that 2.5 by 16. And I'm going to get that gluey piece of paper out of the way for a minute. Okay. Obviously, you know, my measurements are completely irrelevant to your measurements, because they will completely depend on the size of your starting cover. So, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about what my measurements are, because you'll be measuring yours on the go. So it's all part of the fun, right? It's all part of the excitement. Oh, don't even know what I'm going to need. Right, so one more time. I swear to God, I drop that glue stick every single time. All right, so let's get this over here. Pop it in place. Fantastic. And there we go. We have a book cover. I mean, that was really quite simple, quite quick. You know, I know obviously I'm practiced at doing it now, and not everybody is, but the more you do it, the quicker you get, trust me. There was a time it would have taken me about an hour to do this. I think I've missed just a little tiny bit of glue just on that little bit there. Yeah, okay. Let's just get in there with a little tiny bit then. I don't want a lot, obviously. And I'm going to push it away from the top rather than towards the top, to just distribute it a little bit and stop it from just coming straight out the top end. Right, there we go. So now we are going to measure up some signatures. So I would go, okay, well, I'm going to do 3 months per page. because then that gives me the space to say, okay, this is September, this is the group, you know, or sorry, this will all be for the same group on each signature, sorry. So it will say the month, it will say who my swap partner is, what the dates are that the swap is due by, and the address of my swap partner. So everything I need will then be right there on that page, because originally I was thinking of doing it where I kind of had addresses in a different signature, and it's like, no, because then you've got to go hunting each time, whereas if it's just here on the same thing, it doesn't matter. So if I was to be able to do 6 months on one folded page, then I know that I'm going to need you know, kind of, if I'm doing swaps in 4 groups, so, you know, then I'm going to want at least 4 double sides. But also I'm going to put room for wishes as well, so I'm going to have a signature that's just for wishes. So now that will be obviously like so, and then that will have group number 1, group number 2, and for me, group number 3. Obviously, if you've got more groups, add more sheets. As I say, I am gonna put an extra sheet on, because there's always that thing of, oh, I didn't think about that, you know, and you may need more room for that thing. So better to be prepared now and just throw in the extra page. So that's going to be for the swaps, and then I'm going to do one exactly the same for the wishes, because the wishes are often done weekly, or in the ones that I run in the Junk Journal for Beginners group, I do them every 2 weeks, because obviously it's such a large group, so it's like you don't really want to be trying to sort that out every week. You'd end up completely bankrupt from trying to send out wishes to people. But obviously it's a choice, you send out as many or as few as you want. So, but I always see them and I go, oh, I can help, and then you realise you're sending out 27 parcels that week. Postage gets expensive, you know. But I just can't seem to stop myself. So now I need to just make sure that I've got the measurements for these. So what I'm going to do there is I am going to just get my pencil. So, well, okay, I want the pages to come out, obviously not quite to the edge of my cover. So I find often the best way to do that is to fold your spine, and that will then push your page to approximately where it will actually sit when the book is closed, because if you open your book and butt it up to the spine, quite often when you close the book it will then shove them forward over the edge of your cover. And I tend to go kind of 1/2 centimetre to 1 centimetre away from the edge of my cover, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the length. So I'm just going to go, okay, I want that to be about 1/2 centimetre smaller then. So now I know where my cut lines actually are. So I'm just going to pop that in there. So I know that that is 11.5 that way. And, oops, let's just bring that over there. And I need to trim off 5 centimetres that way. Lovely. And then if you've got your pencil marks are still showing like mine, obviously you can just knock those away. I don't think the other one is. No, the other one's not. That's fine. All right. We don't need that anymore. And also get your scraps and stuff out of the way. I'm going to make this easy on myself and you guys for that matter. I'm just going to grab one of my little clamps here. I use the ones with the rubber tips that you can get from like the DIY sections of shops or a DIY shop itself, because it's got the rubber on there. It doesn't damage your pages. Like bulldog clips can leave a line, you know. If that kind of thing bothers you the way it bothers me, rubber tip clamps are the way forward. So I'm going to put it this way so that I can see that I'm equally distant on those 2 edges, or at least in the good vicinity of. So to make it easy, I'm going to just do 2 holes. You can do 3, you can do as many as you want, and obviously it depends on how big your journal actually is. So this is coming in at 17 for me, so 8.5 would be my center point. So what I would do here is I would just mark that center point, although obviously I know I'm not putting in a center hole, but that allows me to then go, okay, I want to put one of the holes at 4.5 centimeters each side of that center point, because that gives me a nice height for my eyelets to go from the ends of the book. So nice and easy. And then we're going to take a marker, and it's fine because obviously your hole punch will be going through the marks, so don't worry. So again, let's just get that back in place. At this point, actually, I'm going to clip it to the cover as well, so that it's not shuffling about, just so I know that I've got the holes in the right places. There we go. So I'm just going to take my marker, and I'm going to go about 1/4 of the way into the spine, and I'm just going to make 2 marks where lined up with those holes. So they're not massive marks, but there's one and there's one. So that just enables me to see better where I'm positioning it when I use the hole punch tool. So then I'm going to go over to about 1 centimetre further across. So now if I get this one out, I'm going to set it to the bigger eyelet, but now thanks to that hole I can see where I need to aim the crocodile, and then I can just slide that along, and I know, there we go, I know then that I'm going to do that in the right place when I move this one along. It's going to be exactly on the right line. And again, it should do exactly the same on this side for me. Yep. And then over for that one. There. So as you can see, I've now got my nice holes in there. So now we're going to set this to the right one. I can't actually remember what the right one is. Guys, oh my life, this is atrocious. All right, so I'm going to use these black ones, and make sure when you're measuring out that you leave at least 1 centimetre if you're using these kind of eyelets as a gap in the middle, because with a 1 centimetre the eyelets will almost touch. So any closer than that and you're going to have problems. I probably should have said that, but I should have said that before, but I'm kind of hoping that you guys know to watch videos through before you try something for the first time. Don't do like I did the first time. Oh my life, what a nightmare. Okay, so let's pull that forward to here, line that up and give it a squidge down. So I've never used these particular eyelets before, so I'm not entirely sure how great they are, but we'll find out, won't we? It was just in a kit I bought from Amazon ages and ages and ages ago, and then decided that I was going to use like kind of antique gold and bronze stuff more, so they've just kind of sat there doing nothing. They seem okay actually. I've had worse. Alright, so there we go. If you find that your eyelets sit a bit proud of the surface and it's going to be a problem, just get yourself a hammer, give them a whack just to flatten the back off a little bit more. Works a treat every time. Right, so now I'm going to get, because I've got like not that many pages here, I'm going to go through both of these signatures at the same time. So I'm just going to make sure that they're completely squared up. I'm going to get myself a couple of clamps, grab my awl, and apparently bring a glue stick with me because of course I need a glue stick as well. So okay, there we go. And don't do what I just did and poke yourself in the finger with the eyelet. It's sharp and quite uncomfortable. Right, so now I don't know what, oh, I do know why I unclamped those. It's so that I can separate the signatures again, wasn't it? Silly me. Okay, lovely. So I'll clamp that one, and then I'll get ready to sew this one in. So I'm going to take the first signature and I'm going to line up the holes to the centre of the eyelet. That way I know I'm at the right height, and then I'm just going to pop a clip on there to hold it in place. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get some embroidery floss, but I don't need all of it, so I'm going to just split it in half. Then I'm just going to grab my little wax disc and thread that through just a couple of times. There we go. Right, let's get that threaded. Didn't make my loop small enough there. Okay, then what I do is I take another clamp and I clamp my thread as well to the bottom, making sure that I'm still nicely lined up there. Sometimes it needs just a little pull back. There we go. Then I'm going to take the cotton, the thread, and I'm going to pull it through the hole nearest the clamp. Actually, I haven't given myself nearly enough actual thread there. That was my fault. So what was I thinking, that tiny little bit of thread? How was I going to manage anything with that? I mean, right, so we're coming through the second hole, and then just because I like it to be nice and secure, I'm going to go through one more time. Take that off of there, and then I'm just going to tie that. You can go through like another time as well if you want to, but 2 passes should be plenty. Tie that round there, give it one more knot just to keep it there nicely, and then I'm just going to tie that into a little bow, because for some reason I do love to finish them with a little bow. And I'll just trim those edges off. There we go, fantastic. Signature number 1 is done. So now you're just going to do the exact same thing with your second signature. So there, that's that part of it, all done, all covered, lovely and ready to use. So as we all know, I'm a little bit extra, aren't I? So I was thinking about how I was going to lay things out within it, and I thought, you know what I need to do? I need to just make some nice sheets to glue into my book. So I've got a quarter, I've got, you know, January, February, March, then the next quarter, and the next quarter for that one group. And then I have put group name on every page so that I don't have to go skipping backwards and forwards trying to find out which group. It's just on the page there. All the information I need is right there, especially if I'm filling out one of my little wish slips and that, or sorry, swap sheets that I do, that I put in with the parcels. Free printable for that is on my coffee page as well. So you can pop those in your packages when you send them out and tell people whether it's a swap, a wish list thing, you know, what group it came from, so on and so forth. So yeah, so I've put that there to get all of the information that I need in one place, and then I can add my other groups to the other pages. and then I've still got a section for wishes at the back here. There you go, guys. I hope that that's been useful, and it's a bit of a novelty, isn't it? It's a bit of fun. But if you're like me and you get ridiculously confused all the time, this kind of thing is absolutely worthwhile. So if it helped you, I would love it if you would leave me a comment and let me know. A thumbs up is always appreciated, as are subscriptions. I'm creeping up closer to the 1500 mark, which obviously there will be another giveaway for that one. We just had the 1000 giveaway a couple of weeks ago, so you know, looking forward to getting to the 1500 mark, and every single subscription matters. So thank you for watching. Thank you for coming back to me time and time again to see what my little brain has come up with this time. And in the meantime, guys, happy crafting, and I'll see you soon.